Hello, everybody. My name is Tom Cottingham. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Flyover Media Group, and I am continuing our discussions with the award winners of the 2023 cohort of the Vogt Awards and the Community Foundation of Louisville. And I'm really happy today to have Matthew and Jeff with us. Matthew, Neal, and Jeff Cummins are both founders of, I want to get this right, Immersive Hearing Technologies, correct?
That's it. Yep.
Which, as soon as you figure out what it is, you'll realize is a really, really cool idea. So let's start with Matthew, who seemed to be fascinated with acoustics from birth. You're a PhD. I mean, explain your fascination with all things hearing related, and you spent a lifetime essentially studying it.
Yeah. I mean, for the record, I wasn't doing any engineering problems at birth. It took a few more years from there.
Good. All right.
But no, so thanks for the introduction. Name's Matthew Neal. So my background is in acoustics and what I would say like audio signal processing. So figuring out how to capture audio with microphones, process it in some way, and then maybe play it back over speakers. I did a PhD at Penn State where I focused on studying concert hall acoustics, and then I used virtual acoustic techniques to do that research. So I would go identify specific concert hall environments, and then I would use either headphones or loudspeakers to try to recreate those different environments. So it was really a tool to how do we make it sound like you're in this setting when you're not actually there. But when I finished the PhD back in 2019, I came to the University of Louisville and I applied all of that to this area of hearing aids. So one of the biggest challenges with the hearing aids is not actually the device itself, but it's where you're wearing the device. The device might work really well when you're sitting with your audiologist in the audiology clinic, but the moment you go to the noisy restaurant, the moment you go to the reverberant church, it's going to behave entirely differently. But your audiologist isn't there to really help get the settings dialed in for you.
And a hearing aid is a microphone and a speaker, right?
Yeah, it's a microphone and a speaker, and then it's got a whole lot of things happening in between that microphone and speaker. There's so many adjustments these days that audiologists can do because the hearing aid, it's a mini computer that you're wearing on your ear.
Right.
So they can make a lot of changes, but it's sometimes hard to get that right and specifically dialed in for you as the patient because you might have different preferences or tastes than the other patient that walked in even just before you. So
sure. Yeah. So, and the environment that you're wearing it in makes a huge difference. And we'll talk about that. Yeah. I sat through your VR thing, which was just really cool, right? The video you guys have. And then it made sense to me. And then Jeff, how did you hook up and get on this venture?
So I am a entrepreneur and a financial business development finance guy for about 25 years with startups and fast growth companies here in Louisville. I'm the CEO of a company called Cardio, and I've just been working around town here for a while. Well, I was introduced to Matthew because I am a hearing aid user. So I wear hearing aids, and we had a conversation about his technology, and I fell in love with it. And as he decided to start a company, I was gladly came along as, like I say, finance and business development. So it's a subject that I put a lot of thought in. I lost a big chunk of my hearing about 10 years ago to the shingles. So yeah, so it's something that I put a lot of thought in. This topic is a passion for me, and this is an incredible product, and sort of achieves the mission of helping people hear better and apply hearing aids better and get more people hearing better, all in all. So it's a mission that I can really get behind. So
yeah, I mean, I totally got it. And it makes so much sense. I mean, really, for all kinds of audio, right? You could go beyond. You could be checking out the acoustics in different rooms to decide where you want to have your concert. Theoretically. Speaking of which, okay, you went to, I don't know, 23 different concert halls or something, so around there.
Yep.
Were there a few that were just an order, at a higher order than the rest that were really, really great, or are they all have pros and cons?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things with concert halls is that which hall is the best is always going to depend on what you're listening to. So whether or not
Right.
you're listening to a solo cellist or a 60-piece orchestra playing like a large arrangement there, that will sort of change the which hall is the best. So everyone says, what was the perfect hall? And it's like, well, there's no one perfect hall. It
Right.
depends on what you're listening to. But what I will say is we went to some of the most famous ones, like in the US, Boston Symphony Hall is a very famous hall.
Sure.
And the agreed upon sort of classics that have withstood the test of time are very good.
All right.
But there's also a lot of other halls that are sort of more modern that were very good as well. But yes, again, definitely depends on what you're listening to and even just your personal preferences and opinions. What's
Right.
very clear is some people like certain types of acoustics and other people prefer other things.
Which gets back to what your product is all about, right?
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about it. The problem or the challenge that you guys are trying to fix is that I buy my hearing aid, and even though the doctor did their best or the audiologist did their very best to get me the right settings, I go out into the real world and it doesn't work the way I had thought it would. Right.
Yeah. So, if you were to go to an audiology clinic today, they would do a diagnostic test to tell you, yes, you have hearing loss, or no, you don't have diagnosable hearing loss. But if you did have hearing loss, they would very much, it would be highly likely to recommend that you wear a hearing aid. Another thing to note is hearing aids are very expensive. The average prescription hearing aid sold in an audiology clinic goes for around $5,000 a pair. So it's a significant investment. So they order it for you.
Than iPods.
A lot more
earpods.
expensive than an AirPod or a Bluetooth earbud for sure. But yeah, so they'd order a device, they'd have you come back for a second visit, and they would program it for kind of like the average person with your type of hearing loss. This is sort of the best starting point. But you're a new patient with your own tastes and preferences, and you go to specific environments. So they kind of send you out and say, go collect the data for yourself, and then come back 2 weeks later, tell us about all of your problems, and we'll try our best to fix those problems. So what happens is, it's really fully reliant on the patient to report all those problems accurately. But if you've never worn a hearing aid before, this could be very difficult. You don't really know what it's supposed to sound like or what you're comparing it to. So what we do is we bring the real world to the clinic. So using an immersive demonstration tool, we let a patient hear what the hearing aid will sound like in the noisy restaurant while they're still in the clinic. What we also do is we let you make a change. So you might say, oh, this sounds kind of tinny, or the water from the sink sounds really harsh.
Right.
So the audiologist can take that feedback, turn a dial on the hearing aid, instantly you hear that change, and they can say, was that better for you, or was that worse for you? And you can provide that direct feedback. We like to compare it to the optometrist a lot. They say, which is better?
I was just going to say that. I was just thinking exactly the same thing. You're solving that.
I tell it to some people. Some people get stressed out. They're like, I don't like it when they ask me that. But a lot of people say, yeah, it's if I have this direct choice, is this one better or is this one better? I can tell them that, and then the professional who knows what they're doing can make those adjustments, and you can instantly have that iterative feedback process rather than every 2 weeks having to sort of wait to make device adjustments and have it all be based upon a memory from a week or 2 weeks ago rather than
which are
something
so
you just heard.
Yeah. Right. I really encourage people that are curious about this to check out the video that they put on their site, because you really start to understand what they're talking about, and it makes a huge amount of sense, assuming it works, and it obviously does because you've spent so much time looking at this. So the earpiece that you wear, the hearing aid, is programmable. And are they all kind of programmable? I mean, not all, but I mean, are the parameters fairly set for what you're programming?
Yeah. So one thing that's kind of interesting to note about our company is we don't make hearing aids, right?
Right.
We make a demonstration tool to show off hearing aids. But what that means is we partner with hearing aid manufacturers, and hearing aid manufacturers already, they make a hearing aid, but they also provide audiologists with all of the tools it takes to program that hearing aid for their patient. And the software will sort of optimize and make that a very efficient process, but it also lets the audiologist be able to turn the knobs behind the scenes. But the other thing is that patients also nowadays do have the ability to make a few changes themselves. A lot of hearing aid manufacturers will provide a phone app or something that might connect with the device. So you might be able to move a few settings yourself, not as many as the audiologist, but a few settings. So what we do is we've partnered with some manufacturers, and they've been able to actually provide us some custom devices. Basically, they're devices that are the same as the hearing aid that you'd walk out the clinic with, but they've actually, for us, removed the microphones from those devices and added some wires so we can directly send audio data into the inputs of the hearing aid. So what this allows us to do is simulate the noisy restaurant and also update it for wherever you spin your head. So if the talker's in front of you, it'll sort of know that as you spin your head, you should shift sound between the left and right ears.
Facial recognition kind of going on.
Exactly. It's a fully dynamic, immersive spatial experience. But that hearing aid sort of knows no different. It thinks it's in a noisy restaurant because it's just getting audio data input that's of the noisy restaurant, and it's going to process sound just like it were in the noisy restaurant. But the other thing it lets you to do is, since it is that clinical device that you could walk out the door with, of course, you won't walk out the door with that one right now because it has wires. It's automatically compatible with all of the phone apps and the fitting software that the audiologists are already fully trained on as well.
Okay.
Eventually, we're hoping to get rid of the wires, so it's a more streamlined process. And ideally, you're walking out with the same device you did the fitting on, but there's some more technical details to figure out. But that's why we're starting a company, raising money, and doing what we're doing.
Well, and it's a growing demographic, right? I mean, just
another thing to note about hearing loss is I think the statistic is there's around 400 million people around the world that have what's known as a disabling hearing loss. So this is a hearing loss that's negatively impacting your day-to-day life. Of those people, so of the people that need a hearing aid, only 1 in 3 people actually choose to buy and wear hearing aids. And there's many reasons why that is. Some of it is cost, but a lot of it is that people actually just also don't necessarily believe that the benefit of wearing the hearing aid is worth it. So you're balancing the benefit you think you're going to get with how much it's going to hit your wallet. So although we're not directly lowering costs of hearing aids, what we are doing is helping people know hearing aids have come so much in the past 10, 20 years. And they're able to do so much more than they used to be able to do. Like the hearing aids of today, like, they're not your, great grandmother's hearing aid. They're not your elderly relative's hearing aid. They're modern devices, and we're able to showcase all the features they can do. The noise blocking and noise cancellation features, the echo reduction or the echo blocking features, and some of the sort of speech focus features where it helps you hear the person in front of you, but blocks out every other sound around you that you don't want to hear.
And then are the hearing aids also going to be Bluetooth enabled for my phone and the other things that I use? I mean, the good news for the hearing aid industry is we're all wearing stuff in our ears, right? So there's no longer this.
It's pretty convenient to be able to take your phone calls on your hearing aids. And,
no kidding.
Stream podcasts or whatever you want. So it is a pretty convenient device now. It's a little expensive compared to an iPod, as you said, but it is very nice.
But there is that dual use. Did you guys see the study on dementia and hearing loss? I thought that was so interesting. And when you read it, it's like, oh, that makes a ton of sense. But I mean, there is a real physical reason to want to be able to hear better, if nothing else, because it keeps your brain going, right?
Yeah, and there's been for a very long time known to be a correlation between hearing loss and dementia. But I think a lot of people have questioned, is this just related because, hearing loss happens as you get older?
Is there really
dementia
a causal
happens
relationship
as you get older? But the recent study I think you're referring to was the first study to actually show a causal link. So the fact they showed that for some populations of people, not wearing the hearing aid actually accelerated the rate or increased the prevalence of dementia. And so, I mean, what this means is that, hearing loss is not just hearing loss. It's a global problem that also leads to these other cognitive issues that end up being real burdens on people's lives, emotionally speaking, for family members and the people that have these, medical concerns, but also even just the country in terms of the burdens on the healthcare system from all these as well. So hearing loss is really a global health epidemic, because we said, what, 400 million people really need to wear hearing aids and don't, and 2 out of 3 people currently aren't. So this is a major health crisis. Some might paint this as well.
And that's a big part of our sort of value proposition too, is that being able to 2 out of 3 people, or 2 out of 3 people that sit down in the audiologist chair buy the hearing aids, which means 1/3 make the decision not to. And as Matthew said, it's typically because they don't understand the features and the benefits of the hearing aid. And that's what our demonstration tool really brings that forward and allows them to understand, what's going on there. It allows them to set expectations correctly for how well the hearing aids will work, and which helps people continue to use them, because sometimes it can be challenging to start to use hearing aids. As Matthew mentioned, people sound like robots, and that your own voice sounds funny to start with, and things like that. So this tool helps counsel. It helps sell more hearing aids. It helps differentiate different levels of technology to get the the patients into the right hearing aid for them. So it provides a lot of benefits in this space to get people into hearing aids, to get them into the right hearing aids, and to keep them using the hearing aids correctly.
Yeah, once you understand it's completely intuitive that this would be advantageous. To kind of everybody in the chain, right? So Jeff, who is the customer? It's the audiologist.
So the audiologist is the customer. We have close relationships with the manufacturers too, of course, but the audiologist would take our tool with a little bit of hardware and a SaaS offering, a software as a service offering, and they would replace a little bit of their workflow, but they would add a few minutes of workflow and say, okay, where do you have trouble hearing? Let me show you how these hearing aids work. And they would add 5, 7, maybe 10 minutes of demonstration time where they could show people how they work. Here's how it works. Here's what it sounds like in the restaurant with your normal hearing. Now I'm going to put this hearing aid on, set, for your hearing. And now you can hear what it sounds like with this basic level of technology. Now here's what it sounds like with the premium level of technology. And the audiologist uses this tool to demonstrate the hearing aids to the patient. The purpose is for them to, provide better patient outcomes with expectation setting and counseling, but also to improve their financial outcomes to some degree. So they improve their close rate a little bit. Their average might go up a little bit, right?
And reduce the number of people coming back.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the key.
They differentiate themselves from other audiologists in town that aren't providing this higher level of service.
So, like many, if not most things, unfortunately, these days, are hearing aids dominated by 3 companies, kind of? Is it that a relatively small 5? Okay. Right.
So there are 5 manufacturers that manage about 90% of the business in prescription hearing aids. Now, recently, the FDA has approved over-the-counter hearing aids. So this is a new sort of offering, and it's differentiated in that these are sort of more entry level, so to speak. They're less expensive for one thing, but they're for people with mild to moderate hearing loss, and they're for those people that are starting to have hearing loss, or they would like to hear a little better in the restaurant. For the most part, they're good, but they'd like to improve, in certain places where the prescription hearing aid for severe and profound loss. So there's this new segment in the market for over the counter too. And we hope to be able to, demonstrate that functionality as well. In that, are you ready for the prescription hearing aid, or can you get by with the over the counter? Would you like to hear what that sounds like in the two different situations too?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, so how will you be able to reach the audiologist? Is that a sales force you have to build? Is it, one big annual trade show a year, or is it a combination of things?
Yeah, I think one aspect is it's definitely, there are trade shows and conferences that all the audiologists go to. But one very important piece of this is when we integrate this with specific manufacturers' devices, the manufacturers have very strong networks and relationships with audiology clinics because they are selling their devices in these clinics. So part of it could be managing partnerships with the manufacturers that would help us sort of partner with us to provide these to clinics, or we can, boots on the grounds, go straight to clinics with our solution as well. So I think we're being strategic about how we're planning and ordering all those, but trying to develop the technology into the right form factor and get it into as many people's hands as can use it and benefit from it, not only from learning more about the hearing aids and being better trained to do their jobs as well for audiologists, but also the patients as well.
Interesting. Well, it's kind of a no-brainer for the audiologist. I mean, I don't know, what your price point's going to be and stuff, but I'm selling a $5,000 piece of equipment. I mean, that's a super high-end stereo, right? So I should be able to justify, whatever.
Yeah, we sure think it's a no-brainer.
It
still
seems
got to
like
convince.
Yeah, well, that's the founder's dilemma, right? Because I'm always like, it's a no-brainer. People will buy this product, and then of course it's not a no-brainer.
If people have to change their habits or spend money, it turns out sometimes
Okay.
you got
That's so. Once you've asked somebody to change habits, the improvement cannot be incremental. It has to be logarithmic, right?
Yeah.
And only then will someone say, "Oh, it's worth it for me to change the way I've been doing something for the last 15 years." But this is self-evidently, if you get in front of somebody, got an ROI on it. I mean,
yeah, and I think what's very
assuming you have
obvious.
data.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of showcasing the technology to audiologists, and every time it's very much, there's always that aha moment where they realize like, wow, this is a very powerful tool. But as I said, this came from sort of my background as a researcher in the university setting. And there's a very different thing between having a research working prototype and having the like product ready clinical tool. An audiologist, the system can't work 9 out of 10 times. It's got to work 10 out of 10 times because they only have so much time with a patient and they want to provide the best care they can. So they can't spend 10 minutes, fixing a bug or anything. They need to optimize and maximize time with the patient. So that's what we're doing right now, is really honing this in, focusing this in on the exact tool that has great product market fit in the clinic. And I think once we get that created and can get this and get some time in clinics, I think that's where we can see hopefully this logarithmic adoption that you talked about.
Right.
And we think there's significant ROI. So, if they improve their close rate by, 5% from 67 to 72, and they sell a little bit better technology, $150 a device, maybe, where the difference is typically between $5,000 and $7,000. And then they reduce their return rate just a small amount. They can add 16% to their revenue. They can add, an average audiologist can add $80,000 to their revenue, and we're certainly not asking that much for it. So there's an economic benefit created by this device when it's dialed in correctly, of course.
It totally makes sense. So this is a good segue. So now you've won this money, non-dilutive, 25 grand, which is awesome. You're going through a 10-week accelerator. Tell me about that a little bit. I know you're only a couple weeks into it, but how's that proving to be in terms of value? Are you both doing it?
We are.
Right.
Yeah, we're doing it together. No, I think the Vogt Awards, I think for me, I sort of had heard about it and seen it advertised. But it's not necessarily limited to academic innovators. It's
Oh,
any
right. Yeah.
startup company in this area. And so I hadn't sort of known, like, is this the right fit for me? I was using a lot more sort of university resources to consider, like, do I want to start a company? But the moment I decided, I do want to focus the time on starting a company, brought Jeff on board, I think it just made sense to start taking this to the community. And so Vote Award was one of the first things we applied for, and we're very happy and fortunate to be selected. So number one, non-dilutive funding is always great. It's going to
Right.
help us do some more software development. So we're trying to look at different form factors for the technology. So virtual reality, obviously one form factor is a VR headset. So doing some VR development with that, but we're also pretty excited about maybe a form factor of an iPad that you would sort of spin around. Think of the iPad as your window into a virtual world, but also can update with all of that sort of head rotation, but doesn't require a patient to wear a VR headset in a clinic, which
Right.
might be kind of tricky. So we're really going to be able to develop out some of these form factors. But yeah, and it also just helps us keep, we are an early stage startup company. So it just helps us keep operating lean, but also keep the lights on and keep some food on the table in the meantime as well.
Well, and the content is very helpful. I mean, they have a structured sort of content, and it's very helpful to think of, the concepts from the perspective of this specific startup. So as you're sitting there, you can really soak it up and kind of think about the content that they're providing, and the guest speakers and things are all so far been very, very helpful. And
yeah, and I would say is the money's good, but I think the more invaluable research is there's a couple coaches that are a part of it,
Right.
and it's always good to get new feedback from experienced entrepreneurs, and they come each and every week. So it's a coaching relationship that they're developing. So that's immensely helpful. And there's also 5 other companies going through it with us. So
Right.
just watching other people, watching what their struggles are, what their challenges are, and the solutions they come up with. I've already sort of seen myself thinking of, oh, well, maybe there's another way we could take this, and just the ideas that are generated from getting, 6,
They're super smart
uh,
people. I mean,
yeah,
I've had a chance to talk to most of them, and by the end, I'll have spoken with all of them. And one of the things I want to do is get all 6 of you back when this thing is over for the 10-week thing. I just think it'd be interesting. But it's just crazy impressive to me. We're in Louisville, Kentucky, and you've got people from all over the world, all doing very different things with really amazing backgrounds. And every single one of them, I'm like, yeah, your company sounds like they really do sound very interesting. So I would think that there's a lot of value in hanging out with them. And, I've said this before, but to me, entrepreneurs are like teenage kids, which is they're going to make the same mistakes, but they do believe they are kind of terminally unique. And so when you sit down with them and say, I've been on this earth for, 40 years, and I know you think you're in love and blah, blah, blah. They're like, no, you don't understand. Right. And, but you do, you've been there. And so talking to people that have been there and are like, no, it's going to cost twice as much. It's going to take twice as long. That's what you need to plan. That's not your goal, but you need to raise enough money and do these things, because they do make the same mistakes. And then even entrepreneurs who've done it before and been successful turn around and make those same mistakes again. So having somebody kind of do reality checks is, I think, really, really valuable. All right. So you got a few more weeks left on this. Are you guys raising any additional money right now, a seed round, or are you just going to wait until you get to another milestone?
we are. We're in the process of raising a seed round for the early stage development. We're raising $300,000 right now.
Okay.
So that gets us to product ready. That also gets us nicely to, we have an SBI or R award coming. We fully expect. We got a great score on one. So that funding with the seed round that we're raising right now gets us a very good spot. So yeah, we're right in the middle of that right now. We're looking for funds.
Well, you're entrepreneurs. You're always going to be raising money,
Yeah.
yeah, one way or another. But
right.
well, I wish you luck on the seed round. You know, the good news is there is money in Louisville for seed rounds and stuff, right? And it's a little tricky when you're getting into a Series A and things like that. But and it's a community that understands medical devices and insurance and other things. So I don't anticipate you guys will have a lot of trouble raising the money because it makes a ton of sense. And
Well,
there is
if anyone
ROI.
listening wants to invest, we certainly are always open to talk to people. For
No,
sure. Like
that's why I asked the question.
This is a
I
great.
just-
This is a great
just like-
opportunity.
Just like I didn't think you were actually going to mention that. Yes, we're raising money.
Yes.
That's where you're going to spend so much of your time anyway. But that's part of the fun of it all. And the good thing, another good thing about flyover country is staying lean is part of the DNA, right? And so you don't get over your skis too much. No one's going to let you go out and buy a jet or a lot of fancy office furniture.
Yeah, Matthew's already cut me off on the jet. You know, I thought maybe that would be a good idea, but you know, just
when you're raising, when you're doing fundraising, it's really useful to just be able to fly point to point and not have to deal with all like the rest of us plebes. Anyway, it's been great meeting you guys and really cool learning about your product. I wish you all the success. It sounds like you're really onto something, and it's. I think that 400 million number, by the way, is just doing Tom math. It's got to be low, and it's growing like crazy. I mean, China's aging, we're aging, Western Europe's aging, right? And it's a huge market regardless. And 2/3 of that would be a nice chunk to go after. So best of luck.
For sure.
And as you guys know, you need a little bit of luck, and the rest is just hard work. But I hope we can circle back and stay kind of up to what you guys are doing and follow your progress and your success in the coming months and years.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tom. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Right on,
thanks
guys.
for having us, and happy to circle back. For
Yeah,
sure.
thank you. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.